Hey guys, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about myself. I, of course, am Michael Chabon, contemporary American writer, if you will. But before we get started, get into my works and get into my career, I'd like to give a little bit of personal information. I was born on May 24th, 1963, in Washington, D.C. My parents were doctors, and at first it seemed like a very normal childhood. However, at age 11, my parents divorced, and I would spend the remainder of my childhood between Pittsburgh and Maryland, respectively. My mother lived in a very progressive community in Pittsburgh that fostered a lot of diversity. She was a chronic marijuana user, and seeing that cross-section of society really influenced me later on in life. Before my parents split, I had received an A on a writing project in my English class, and at that point I realized writing was something that I could really do, something I could succeed in. And I guess you could say that's where I got my start as a writer. After high school, I spent a year at Carnegie Mellon University, before transferring to the University of Pittsburgh, where I studied under Chuck Kinder, an English professor who would eventually become the inspiration for a character in my second novel, Wonder Boys. After receiving a Bachelor of Arts at Pitt, I moved on to the University of California at Irvine for my graduate studies. There, I received my Master's of the Fine Arts in Creative Writing, and unbeknownst to me, one of my professors submitted my senior thesis, now known as The Mysteries of Pittsburgh, to a publishing firm, and in 1988, after its release, it received great acclaim, and with it, I became very... At one point, I was even asked to appear on People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People in an ad for Gap, the clothing company. Before I moved on to later works, more about my sad excuse for a personal life. In 1987, I was pegged by Newsweek as one of the most up-and-coming gay writers in America. At that point, I was actually engaged to my first wife, Lolly Groth. Though Newsweek had made a mistake, I was pleased with the new readership that I had gotten. With Lolly struggling in her own career, the early onset success of The Mysteries of Pittsburgh created an imbalance in our relationship that couldn't be overcome, and unfortunately in 1991 we divorced. Back on my feet, however, in 1993 I married my second wife, Ayala Waldman. We currently live together in Berkeley, California with our 4 children. My family life keeps me busy, but I realize the importance of my work and will never allow writer's block to get in my way. Now to my works. Obviously, the early onset success of The Mysteries of Pittsburgh afforded me great literary opportunities. I quickly moved on to my next project. It was called Fountain City. Hold on. It was a tough time in my life. Fountain City was a story of a struggling architect trying to construct the perfect ballpark in Florida. However, with 1,500 pages and no end in sight, I never really felt like conceptually I was on stable ground. I became convinced I needed to scrap the project. Without reprieve, I started Wonder Boys, the story of a struggling professor and author. Just like the protagonist Grady Tripp, I was struggling with what seemed to be a never-ending piece of prose, and I just needed somewhere to go. I needed to keep writing. At that point, my first wife, Lolly, and I had just divorced. She had taken half of the value of the publishing contract that I had earned after the success of The Mysteries of Pittsburgh, and frankly, I wasn't ready for that kind of stress. I sat immediately down in front of my computer and I began writing. Basing Wonder Boys off of my own personal struggles with Fountain City made it a little bit of an easier task. In a little over 7 months, without the knowledge of my editor or really anyone in my life, which may have made it a little bit more difficult, I abandoned Fountain City and finished a draft of Wonder Boys. The novel would eventually become a great success. It would be turned into, in the year 2000 I think, it was turned into a major motion picture starring Michael Douglas and Tobey Maguire, to name a few. But there were critics, specifically one that has stuck with me over the years is Jonathan Yardley, of the Washington Post. He said that, in my works up to that point, I had been preoccupied with, fictional explorations of my own life. Frankly, it was time for me to move on, to break free from the first person and explore larger worlds. He was correct. I had much bigger goals. After I discovered a childhood comic, I don't know whether it was in my attic or somewhere, and I was reminded of stories that my father had once told me of his childhood in Brooklyn. I began work on my first epic historical novel. It was called, and well, in fact the title hasn't changed, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Achieving unanimous praise. I mean, the response to that book was truly amazing and great for me and for my family at that point. It was a New York Times bestseller, won the 2001 Pulitzer Prize for fiction. It was great. It's everything an author could wish for. It was my story of two Jewish comic book enthusiasts in the years leading up to World War I. These are two kids living in New York City, wide-eyed, trying to create a world, trying to escape from their own world. With Cavalier and Clay, I discovered strengths that I had hoped I'd always had. Cavalier and Clay was a great success for me. It showed me that I possessed the ability to pull off multiple points of view, historical settings, passage of years, which I'd never really tested in any one work before, but this was proof that I could do it. My most recent works have included comic book series, one inspired by Cavalier and Clay, a set of memoirs, other prose. I do have a new book on the way. It's part of a 2-book contract I signed with HarperCollins in 2007, and it should be an adult fiction set in the San Francisco Bay Area. It was supposed to be coming in 2011, but there were a few setbacks. Amongst my prose, I've also tried to come and embrace the silver screen. It's a new medium, but it also captures the attention of a large audience. The Mysteries of Pittsburgh Wonder Boys have both been transferred to Major Motion Pittsburgh, and I've served as contributors on several films. Obviously, this year, John Carter has been very successful. Spider-Man 2 I was able to contribute to. These movies bring me back to my childhood, and it's very exciting. To my knowledge, actually. Hold on one second. Yeah, this is important? Oh, really? They're going for it? Perfect. Thanks. Alright, bye. Actually, very exciting. Cavalier and Clay has once again gotten the green light to go. It's supposed to be starring Tobey Maguire and Natalie Portman, so hopefully that'll be coming out soon. But to any aspiring writers, what I've said up to this point is pretty much useless. Writing is a creative process, but I truly believe that beyond the expression of emotions, it's really important to do your writing every day. I keep a strict schedule, Sunday to Thursday, 1,000 words a day, and it's helped me keep my stride. I'm inspired to write about things I love, and you have to keep writing. You have to keep purging your emotions, keep getting your thoughts on paper, and you'll get the ideas that you need. I try to, express myself in my works, but I also try to, convey the perspective and ideas of authors who've written in a similar style. For example, The Yiddish Policeman's Union, a later work of mine. I try to have myself step into the shoes of Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, Ross MacDonald, who are some of my favorites in that style of writing. I was honored to be there in the room with them, obviously not literally, but get in their heads and kind of see where they would go with it. I try to infuse basic cultural references in my writing while trying to, employ some of these different styles, and so readers from different areas will say, this is good, I like this. I want the reader to be able to connect. I try to mix different aspects of genres with my literary fiction, and I found that really the state of modern short fiction consists solely of contemporary, quotidian, plotless, moments of truth, and it's not satisfying. I want to add a little flavor and a little bit of life to these things. I want to make prose interesting. Like some of my greatest influence, John Updike, Philip Roth, F. Scott Fitzgerald. Maybe Fitzgerald in particular. I try to explore the fundamental and intimate aspects of each of my characters. Whether it's Nick Carraway in Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, or Grady Tripp in My Wonder Boys. I want people to get in their head. I want them to understand what they're going through at the most basic level. It might be racy, it might be inappropriate at times, but this is what these characters are going through, and it's essential to connect with the story. Whether it's a screenplay, comic book, novel, essay collection, plot-driven, or genre fiction, I write about things I understand, whether it be nostalgia, divorce, abandonment, fatherhood, gay, bisexual, or Jewish characters. If I can connect with the theme, I know I can produce a superior product. Writing has given me so much, a livelihood, but really a way to express my emotions, and perhaps that's what I want for all of you writers out there, to find something about writing that you can really enjoy. It's not that it's catharsis for me, but it's a way for me to explore myself, to move into my future with a better understanding of how I can be a better person, how I can write better, how I can be a better father, really everything. I've skipped a lot, obviously. My life, my works, there's a lot out there, but I implore you to pick up any of my novels if this interests you at all, because in my novels is where you'll see who I am. But my editor is pushing me to, push Wonder Boys. It's been a while since sales have been up. And what I love about Wonder Boys is, you really connect with Grady Tripp. He's been beaten to a pulp. He's been writing this book, Wonder Boys. He's thousands of pages in with no end in sight. He's hiding behind this novel because his life is collapsing. His wife is leaving him. He's having an extramarital affair. The woman who's having an affair with is pregnant. She's also his boss. He's going to lose his job. He's having a relapse of alcoholism. He's a chronic marijuana user. And, his life, just everything is crumbling. Nothing's going right. And he finally loses the text, the one copy of the book he has. And it's almost good. It's the point when he has to realize he needs to move on. And Sarah Gaskell, the woman he's having this affair with, saves him. They move out into the country somewhere. They go to work at a college. He writes when he can, but they start this family. And it makes you realize how the smallest events can create the longest chain of reactions that can just result in a complete change in scenario. It's a great read. It's not too long, and even for the younger reader, adolescents, it's fantastic. I would definitely recommend it to anyone, not just for the benefit of my own pocket, but for a really enjoyable read. So I thank you for this.